The Korthak Armada moved through the void like death itself, their obsidian ships cutting through space with the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. Admiral Vexithar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Asterisk Bone Render Asterisk, watching the blue-green marble of Earth grow larger on his screens. His four eyes gleamed with anticipation as he flexed his razor-sharp claws. Another primitive world, ripe for harvest, he growled to his second-in-command, Commander Zefka. Scan their defenses. I want to know how quickly we can strip their planet bare. The Korthak had perfected the art of planetary conquest over 3 millennia. They would arrive with overwhelming force, crush any resistance within hours, then systematically harvest every resource worth taking. Metals, biological samples, slaves. Everything had value to the Korthak Empire. What remained was left as a barren husk, a monument to Korthak superiority. Zefka's scanning equipment hummed as it analyzed Earth's orbital defenses. Admiral, they have approximately 200 vessels in their defense fleet, primitive chemical rockets, and basic energy weapons. Their largest ships are barely 1/10 the size of our destroyers. Vexithar's mandibles clicked in amusement. 200 ships? We brought 8,000. This will be over before their sun sets. What the Korthak scanners had detected was accurate but incomplete. Humanity's visible fleet was indeed small and primitive by galactic standards. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant Asterisk, Earth's flagship, watching the alien armada approach through the viewing ports. The sheer number of enemy vessels made her stomach turn, but her voice remained steady as she addressed her crew. All stations, report readiness status. Lieutenant Marcus Chen looked up from his tactical console. Weapons systems online, Captain. All missile tubes loaded and ready. Communications are clear, reported Ensign Sarah Kim. All Earth ships are responding on primary channels. Engineer David Park wiped sweat from his forehead as he monitored the ship's power systems. Reactors running at optimal efficiency, Captain. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Captain Vasquez nodded, then activated the fleet-wide communication system. This is Captain Vasquez to all Earth Defense Force vessels. We know the odds, we know what we're facing, but we also know what we're fighting for. Our families, our world, our future. Make every shot count. What neither the Korthak nor the human defenders realized was that this battle would become something far different than anyone expected. Admiral Vexithar began his assault with textbook precision. The first wave consisted of 500 Korthak fighters, sleek vessels designed to overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer numbers. They moved in perfect formation, their synchronized attack patterns honed through centuries of warfare. First wave, begin your attack run, Vexithar commanded. Target their largest vessels first. I want their command structure eliminated within the first hour. The human response was immediate but seemed pathetically inadequate. Earth's fighters launched from their carriers in small squadrons, maybe 50 ships total against the Korthak's 500. The alien pilots laughed as they watched the human craft approach. Look at them, sneered Flight Leader Crexmore. They're flying in such loose formations. No discipline, no coordination. This will be a slaughter. The first engagement took place near Earth's moon. Korthak fighters opened fire with their particle beam weapons, expecting to cut through the human ships like plasma through tissue. What happened next would be discussed in Korthak military academies for generations to come. The human fighters didn't behave like any enemy the Korthak had ever faced. Instead of maintaining formation and following predictable attack patterns, they scattered in all directions like startled insects. But their movements weren't random. They were impossibly coordinated chaos. Lieutenant Jake Phantom Rodriguez dove his F-95 interceptor beneath 3 Korthak fighters, rolled inverted, and fired a burst from his plasma cannons that took out 2 enemy ships in one pass. Before the third Korthak pilot could react, Rodriguez's wingman, Captain Lisa Viper Thompson, had already lined up the kill shot. Splash 2 bogeys, Rodriguez reported over the radio. These guys fight like they're following a script. Copy that, Phantom, Thompson replied, pulling a high G turn that should have been impossible for a human pilot to survive. They're predictable. Watch the pattern, they always turn left after taking fire. The Korthak pilots were indeed following standard Imperial Navy combat doctrine, tactics that had proven successful against hundreds of different species. But those species had all fought in organized, predictable ways. Humans seemed to make up new tactics every few seconds. Commander Zefka watched the battle unfold on his tactical display with growing confusion. "Admiral, we're losing fighters faster than projected. The humans they're not fighting according to any recognizable pattern." "Impossible," Vexthar growled. "They're a primitive species. They should be following basic combat principles." "Sir, they appear to be ignoring basic combat principles entirely." On Earth, General Patricia Morrison stood in the Pentagon Situation Room, watching satellite feeds of the battle in space. Around her, military leaders from every nation on Earth coordinated humanity's defense. For the first time in human history, every military force on the planet was working together. General Morrison called Colonel Yamamoto from the Japanese Defense Force. "Our pilots are reporting something unusual. The aliens seem to be predictable. They're not adapting their tactics." "Confirmed," added General Petrov from the Russian Space Command. "My pilots are saying the same thing. The aliens fight like machines following a program." Morrison frowned as she studied the tactical displays. Human pilots were indeed performing better than anyone had expected, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening here. Dr. Rebecca Foster burst into the Situation Room, her lab coat still stained with coffee and her hair disheveled from working through the night. She was Earth's leading xenobiologist, and she'd been analyzing intercepted Korthak communications since the fleet first appeared. "General Morrison," she said breathlessly, "I need to show you something immediately. It's about the aliens." Morrison followed Dr. Foster to a smaller briefing room where computer screens displayed complex biological data. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "Korthak neural patterns," Foster explained, pulling up brain scans of captured alien pilots. "I've been studying their thought processes, and there's something wrong with them. Look at this." The brain scans showed neural activity that was highly organized but eerily uniform. "Their brains all show identical patterns," Foster continued, "identical responses to identical stimuli. They're not really thinking independently." "What does that mean?" "It means they're not creative problem solvers. They can only respond to situations they've been programmed to handle. When faced with something truly unpredictable, they can't adapt." General Morrison felt a chill run down her spine. "And humans are unpredictable?" "General, we're the most unpredictable species in the galaxy. We have something no other known species has developed. True individual consciousness combined with pack cooperation. We can think independently and work together simultaneously." Admiral Vexithar was beginning to understand that something was terribly wrong with his conquest. 3 hours into the battle, he had lost over half his fighters, while the humans had lost fewer than 20 ships. His tactical computers couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. "How are they doing this?" he demanded, slamming his fist on the command console. "They're using inferior technology, and they're outnumbered 20 to 1. Commander Zefka pulled up recordings of the human fighter tactics. "Admiral, look at this. They're coordinating without using any detectable communication methods. It's like they can read each other's minds." "That's impossible. Furthermore, they're not following any known combat doctrine. They seem to be inventing new tactics in real time, adapting to our responses faster than our computers can calculate counter-strategies." Vexithar studied the tactical display. The human ships moved in patterns that seemed random but achieved perfect coordination. It was like watching a murmuration of starlings, individual elements moving freely, but creating a unified whole that was greater than the sum of its parts. "Send in the second wave," Vexthar ordered. "All remaining fighters. Overwhelm them with sheer numbers." 2,000 Korthak fighters launched from the massive alien carriers. The darkened space around Earth filled with enemy ships like a plague of metallic locusts. Surely no defense could stand against such overwhelming force. Captain Vasquez watched the massive enemy formation approach on her ship's sensors. The situation looked hopeless, but something strange was happening among her crew. They were working together with an efficiency she had never seen before. "Captain," called Lieutenant Chen from the tactical station, "I'm seeing patterns in their formation. If we coordinate with the other ships, we can create overlapping fields of fire that will maximize our effectiveness." Engineer Park looked up from his console. "Captain, I've been monitoring our reactor output. When we work in close coordination with other ships, our energy efficiency increases dramatically. It's like our systems are somehow synchronizing." Ensign Kim turned from her communication station. "Ma'am, all ships in the fleet are reporting the same phenomenon. We're achieving coordination levels that shouldn't be possible." Captain Vasquez felt something stirring in her mind, an awareness that seemed to extend beyond her own thoughts. She could sense the other ships in the fleet, feel their movements and intentions as if they were extensions of her own body. "All ships," she said into her communicator, "form up in Delta formation. We're going to show these aliens what human coordination really looks like." The second wave of Korthak fighters met a human defense that had evolved beyond anything the aliens had ever encountered. Human ships moved in perfect harmony, creating fields of interlocking fire that turned space into a deadly maze for the attacking forces. Lieutenant Rodriguez found himself flying maneuvers he had never trained for, executing turns and attacks that came to him instinctively. It was as if some part of his mind had awakened, giving him awareness of every enemy ship within miles of his position. "Control, this is Phantom," he reported. "I don't know how to explain this, but I can feel where the enemy ships are going to be before they get there." "Copy that, Phantom," came the reply from Flight Control. "All pilots are reporting enhanced situational awareness. Just go with it." Captain Thompson executed a barrel roll that took her through a formation of 5 Korthak fighters. Her weapons found their targets with impossible precision, destroying 4 ships in a single pass. "Viper to all pilots," she called out. "Trust your instincts. Something's happening to us, and whatever it is, it's making us better." The slaughter of the second wave was even more complete than the first. 2,000 Korthak fighters were reduced to drifting debris in less than 2 hours, while human losses remained minimal. Admiral Vexithar stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species should be able to coordinate like this without advanced neural linking technology." Dr. Foster was making discoveries in her laboratory that would change humanity's understanding of itself forever. Deep in the human genome, she had found genetic sequences that had been dormant for millennia, sequences that were now activating in response to the crisis. "General Morrison," she called over the communications system, "you need to see this immediately." Morrison rushed back to Foster's lab, where the scientist was pointing excitedly at a computer screen showing human DNA analysis. "The genetic changes are accelerating," Foster explained. "Whatever's happening to our pilots, it's spreading to the general population. We're evolving in real time." Evolving into what? Something that's been sleeping in our DNA for thousands of years. Look at these neural pathway formations. We're developing collective consciousness capabilities while maintaining individual identity. It's like we're becoming a single organism with billions of independent parts. Morrison felt a moment of vertigo as the implications hit her. Is this permanent? I don't know, but I do know that it's giving us abilities that no other species in the galaxy possesses. Admiral Vexithar decided to abandon his planned systematic approach and commit his entire fleet to one massive assault. "All ships, full attack formation. We end this now." 8,000 Korthak warships moved toward Earth in the largest military formation in the galaxy's recorded history. Their combined firepower could crack planets. No defense force had ever survived such an assault. But the humans had changed. Captain Vasquez stood on her bridge and felt the awareness of every human in the solar system flowing through her consciousness. Millions of minds linked together while remaining completely individual, sharing information and coordination at the speed of thought. "All ships," she said, and her voice carried the weight of humanity's collective will, "prepare for final engagement." The human fleet moved with perfect synchronization. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship would be at every moment. Their weapons fired in patterns that created beautiful, deadly geometries in space. The Korthak assault met a defense that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Human ships appeared, and disappeared where they were needed most. Their weapons found targets with impossible accuracy. Their formations moved like living things, flowing around enemy attacks and striking where the aliens were weakest. Commander Zefka watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that had seemed hopelessly outmatched just hours before. Admiral, their coordination is impossible. They're fighting as if controlled by a single mind. But our analysis shows each ship is operating independently. How many ships have we lost? 4,000 and climbing. At this rate, our entire fleet will be destroyed within 6 hours. Vexathar felt something he had never experienced in 3,000 years of conquest. Fear. Retreat. Signal full retreat. But it was too late. The humans had learned something terrible and wonderful about themselves, and they were no longer content to simply defend. Captain Vasquez felt the collective consciousness of humanity focusing its attention on the fleeing Korthak ships. For the first time in human history, her species was truly united in purpose. "Attention, Korthak fleet," she broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force. You came here to harvest our world and enslave our people. You have failed." Admiral Vexathar received the transmission with growing terror. The human's words carried harmonics that seemed to reach directly into his mind. "What do you want from us?" "We want you to understand something," Vasquez replied, and her voice now carried the weight of billions of human minds. "You've been conquering primitive species for millennia, beings who fought the way you expected them to fight. But you've never encountered a species like us. What makes you different?" Dr. Foster's voice joined the transmission, speaking from her laboratory on Earth, but somehow present in Vexathar's consciousness. "We're not just individuals, and we're not just a collective. We're something new, something that can think as one while remaining free as individuals." The truth hit Admiral Vexathar like a physical blow. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were demonstrating abilities that no known species possessed. They had achieved perfect coordination without sacrificing individual creativity. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before. "Admiral," Commander Zefka called out, "the humans are doing something to our ships." Vexathar looked at his displays and saw that human vessels were attaching themselves to his fleeing ships. But they weren't attacking. Instead, they seemed to be helping. "This is Engineer David Park," came a transmission from one of the human ships. "Your navigation systems are damaged. We're uploading repair protocols." "This is Lieutenant Shen," called another human voice. "Your life support systems are failing on Deck 7. We're transmitting emergency procedures." Admiral Vexathar stared in confusion as the humans who had just destroyed half his fleet began saving the lives of his surviving crews. "Why are you helping us?" Captain Vasquez's voice filled every Korthak ship in the fleet. "Because we've learned something you haven't. True strength doesn't come from conquest. It comes from cooperation." The collective human consciousness reached out to every surviving Korthak, offering not domination, but partnership. "We know you've been conquering worlds for thousands of years," Dr. Foster explained. "But what if there was another way? What if you could achieve greatness through cooperation instead of conquest?" Vexathar felt his worldview crumbling. For 3 millennia, the Korthak Empire had believed that the universe was divided into predators and prey. The strong took from the weak. That was the natural order. But the humans were offering something impossible, the chance to become part of something greater without losing their identity. They were sharing their evolved consciousness, their collective abilities, with the very enemies who had come to destroy them. "This is not possible," Vexathar whispered. "It's not only possible," Captain Vasquez replied gently. "It's inevitable. The universe is evolving, Admiral. The choice is whether you evolve with it or remain trapped in patterns of conquest and fear." Throughout the Korthak fleet, individual crew members began to feel their minds expanding, their awareness growing beyond their individual selves while remaining completely themselves. The humans were sharing their gift freely, asking nothing in return. Commander Zefka looked up from his station with eyes that now held a new light. "Admiral, I can feel them, the humans, but also our own crew. We're all connected, but we're still ourselves." Admiral Vexithar felt the change beginning in his own consciousness. The rigid patterns of thought that had defined Korthak culture for millennia began to soften, replaced by something fluid and creative. He could sense every being in both fleets, feel their thoughts and emotions while maintaining his own identity. "What have you done to us?" he asked, but his voice held wonder rather than fear. "We've given you what was given to us," Captain Vasquez explained. "The ability to be both individual and collective, to think creatively while working in perfect harmony. It's a gift, not a conquest." Dr. Foster's research had revealed that humanity's evolutionary leap was not unique to their species. The genetic potential existed in all intelligent life, dormant and waiting for the right catalyst. The crisis of invasion had triggered humanity's awakening, and now they could share that awakening with others. "The galaxy is full of species, trapped in cycles of conquest and domination," Foster explained to the Korthak fleet. "But it doesn't have to be that way. We can all become something greater." Admiral Vexithar made a decision that would reshape galactic civilization. "All Korthak ships, stand down. We are no longer an invasion force." The transformation spread beyond the immediate fleets. On every world the Korthak had conquered, on every planet where their empire held sway, beings began to feel their consciousness expanding. The rigid hierarchies of imperial power began to dissolve as individuals discovered they could cooperate without losing their freedom. Captain Vasquez stood on her bridge and felt the awareness of millions of species across the galaxy awakening to new possibilities. The collective consciousness that had begun with humanity was spreading, not through conquest, but through voluntary participation. "This is just the beginning," she said to her crew, who now represented not just humanity, but the first members of a new kind of galactic civilization. "We've learned to fight as one while remaining free as individuals. Now we can teach others." Lieutenant Rodriguez, still flying patrol around Earth, marveled at what had happened. "Control, this is Phantom. Looks like we won more than just a battle today." "Copy that, Phantom," came the reply. "We won the future." The invasion had indeed begun with confidence. The Korthak's confidence in their ancient patterns of conquest and domination. It ended with something that could only be called a massacre. The massacre of old ways of thinking, old patterns of fear and aggression, old beliefs about what was possible. In their place rose something new. A galaxy where countless species could work together while maintaining their unique identities. Where cooperation replaced conquest. Where the strong helped the weak become stronger, rather than exploiting their weakness. Admiral Vexithar, his consciousness now expanded beyond anything he had previously imagined possible, sent a message to the Korthak High Command. "The invasion of Earth is complete," he reported. "The planet has been successfully integrated into the Empire." It was technically true. Earth had become part of something vast and powerful. But the Empire itself had become something entirely different. Not a hierarchy of conquest, but a collective of cooperation. The transformation would take time to spread across the galaxy, but it had begun. Species after species would face the same choice the Korthak had faced: evolve beyond conquest or remain trapped in patterns of fear and domination. Most would choose evolution, because once beings experienced true cooperation, the ability to work together while remaining completely free, the old ways of thinking seemed not just primitive, but impossible to maintain. The humans had awakened something that had been sleeping in the galaxy for millions of years. Not through conquest, but through the simple act of demonstrating that there was another way to exist, another way to relate to other beings, another way to achieve greatness. Until the invasion fleet had indeed reached Earth. What happened next would reshape the meaning of life across countless worlds, forever changing what it meant to be alive in a universe where consciousness itself was evolving towards something greater than the sum of its parts. The massacre was complete. The old galaxy was dead. Long live the new galaxy, one where every being could be both individual and collective, free and connected, unique and united. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe was celebrating the birth of something it had been waiting billions of years to see. Intelligent life that had finally learned to truly live.